watching News 3 Now, live at 4.
Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Monday. Hope you had a nice weekend. Welcome to Live at 4. Do you have a good weekend?
I did, yeah. It was very nice. I had some friends in town, so I played tour guide. What about you?
Very nice, yeah. I got soaked at the art fair, yes. The Agora Art Fair. Got caught in one of those downpours.
Yeah. And we had quite the downpour today.
Yeah.
We are beginning immediately with your first warn forecast. Blaze Keller is watching out for the chance of when we could see a few storms in the area. Blaze?
Yeah, we've already had a couple of severe thunderstorms move through parts of Wisconsin, Dane County, parts of Iowa, and Lafayette counties and Greene County dealing with that severe weather, not to mention Jefferson County. We haven't had any severe thunderstorm warnings for a couple of hours, but we're still sitting underneath an isolated chance for severe weather in the green. Farther to our south in the yellow, that is where we find more of that scatter chance for severe weather. But folks in the green, don't let our guard down quite yet. Even though Radar 3000 is keeping us on the quiet side in terms of severe thunderstorm warnings, we are going to continue to see that chance for severe weather, I would say through at least the early evening hours. And that's going to be primarily for folks closer to the state line. We do find some showers and thunderstorms stretching from about Fort Atkinson all the way back south and west into Darlington. So anybody underneath these showers, you may be dealing with some heavier rain. Also out there in Prairie du Chien into Wazeeka, that is where we're also seeing a bit of a heavier shower at this hour. Future Track is going to continue to bring some of that activity across southeastern parts of Wisconsin. Again, those could be severe, so we'll be tracking out those. And then the quiet conditions set on in. We've got details on how long the dry conditions last for in the full forecast.
All right, Blaze, thank you. Right now, President Trump is meeting with European leaders to discuss the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine.
And it comes after a meeting between Russia's Vladimir Putin and the president on Friday. European leaders are expected to push for President Trump to join them and take in a harder stance against Putin. But the main talking point at the meeting is on how the U.S. can make Ukraine more comfortable with a potential ceasefire.
We spoke about it, and we will speak more about security guarantees. This is very important that the United States gives such strong signal and is ready for security guarantees.
The meeting underway currently comes after a meeting between President Trump and Ukraine's president earlier today, where the president said he doesn't want temporary peace.
This is very long term. We're not talking about a 2-year peace and then we end up in this mess again. When it comes to security, there's going to be a lot of help. It's going to be good. They are first line of defense because they're there. They're Europe. But we're going to help them out also. We'll be involved.
Whether that involvement will include sending American troops into Ukraine is unknown, but the president didn't rule it out. All of this as Russia continues hitting Ukraine with missiles and drone strikes. We'll continue to provide you updates on what happens at the meeting in our newscasts and online. Receive the news as it happens with the free Channel 3000 mobile app.
The woman charged with drunkenly crashing her car, killing 2 teenagers in DeForest, is back in the Dane County Jail. Federal immigration authorities returned 30-year-old Noelia Martinez Avila back to jail Friday night. Online records show after posting bond, immigration authorities took Martinez Avila into custody. They returned her after her bond was raised. The Department of Homeland Security says Martinez Avila is originally from Honduras. She's charged with 2 counts of homicide by intoxicated use of a vehicle and 7 other charges. The State Patrol says on July 20th, Martinez Avila was driving south in the northbound lanes on the interstate when she hit an SUV. 18-year-old Hallie Helgeson of Minnesota died at the scene, and 19-year-old Brady Heiling, also from Minnesota, died later at the hospital. Martinez Avila is due back in court next month.
A motorcyclist is dead after crashing into an SUV in Lodi last night. According to the Columbia County Sheriff's Office, the motorcycle crossed the center line, hit a guardrail, and collided with the SUV. Officers say alcohol may have been a factor in the crash. The motorcyclist was not wearing a helmet when they were thrown from the bike. UW Med Flight doctors pronounced the rider dead at the scene.
To continuing coverage now of a troubled Fitchburg business that is rebranding after the Common Council renewed its liquor license under conditions.
Our Jalen Banks has been following this story for months now, and he joins us live from Fitchburg with how we got here. Jalen?
Brady and Susan, just behind me is Cornerstone Grill, formerly known as Monkey Shine's Bar and Grill. Now, this rebrand comes after several years of trouble for the business. Now, this past May, a homicide occurred at the business, prompting the city to reconsider whether or not to renew its liquor license. In a common council meeting in June, the business's owner presented a slew of changes to the common council that the business would undertake in order to rehab their image. Those included closing its doors for the entire month of July, changing its closing time from 1:30 a.m. to 11 p.m., create a more family environment through a remodel and with its menu, and a complete name change, which was announced today. Now, as Cornerstone Grill tries to write like a new chapter for the business, trying to, separate itself from some of the issues of the past with this rebrand. Now, we had reached out to the business of Cornerstone now, asking for a comment or an interview, but they said just because now that they're reopening and, getting things underway with this new rebrand, they'll take media availability at a different time. But as you guys have mentioned, I've been following this story for months now. When that immediate availability becomes available, I'll for sure speak to the owners on this new rebrand and, how they anticipate this, to better the business and Fitchburg as a whole. We'll continue to keep you updated both on air and online. But for now, reporting live in Fitchburg, just outside of what is now Cornerstone Grill, Jalen Banks, News 3 Now.
Thank you, Jalen. Well, just a heads up, a street closure that was supposed to go into effect today won't happen until tomorrow. Crews were supposed to begin repairing failing asphalt on East Doty Street between MLK Boulevard through the Pinckney Street intersection this morning. But, due to that weather, repairs are delayed until tomorrow. As crews work, Doty will be restricted to one lane. Work is expected to be completed by 3:30 in the afternoon. More information on detours and impacted bus routes is on the City of Madison's website.
Well, to Packers coverage now. After an injury to his non-throwing hand, Jordan Love took a break from training camp.
Our senior Packers writer Jason Wilde tells us whether he was able to participate in practice today.
How you doing, everybody? Greetings from rainy Lambeau Field. Jordan Love underwent surgery on his left non-throwing thumb to repair a torn ligament 6 days ago. Today, he was back on the practice field just as he planned and just as he'd promised. Now, there were some limitations to what he was able to do. Packers were not in pads. They ran 7-on-7 drills. They did not do 11-on-11, so he wouldn't be in harm's way with pass rushers. And instead of taking a snap from his center, he was picking the ball up off of a stool. But nevertheless, practice is practice, and he was able to participate, which is a great sign for the September 7th opener against the Detroit Lions right here at Lambeau Field and right here on Channel 3. We'll continue to cover everything Jordan Love and everything Packers at channel3000.com for free. And don't forget, while you're there, make sure you sign up for our daily newsletter so you can get our Packers coverage delivered directly to your inbox. That's it from here. Back to you in the studio.
All right, Jason, thank you. When we come back, advocates in the fight against opioid addiction are praising a new law focused on fentanyl.
We're talking with Angela Kennecke, founder of Emily's Hope, about how the HALT Act could help families avoid tragedy.
Blaze will tell us when we could see some more storms tonight ahead of a quiet rest of the week ahead in his First Warn forecast.
Well, here's a live look at the Turks and Caicos Islands, where people have started seeing the effects of Hurricane Erin. This morning, the Category 4 storm's outer rain bands reached the islands and the Bahamas after lashing through Puerto Rico, triggering flash flooding and power outages.
The storm is likely to stir up dangerous conditions along the U.S. East Coast in the next couple of days. Forecasters expect Erin to miss the U.S., but warn that a threat remains, with dangerous surf and rip currents likely. Many islands along North Carolina and the Outer Banks are evacuating. Coastal flooding is expected to start tomorrow and continue through Thursday.
We had a rainy start to today, and Blaze is keeping an eye on the weather in our area. Here's a look at our First Warn forecast.
Now, we're still going to track that chance for an isolated severe thunderstorm through at least the early evening hours. But the good news is, starting Tuesday through what looks to be most of the extended forecast, not only is central and southern Wisconsin cooling down, but we're also looking to remain dry and comfortable as we go into the rest of not only this week, but possibly the upcoming weekend as well. So that is some good news. It has been a rainy couple of days, to say the least. I think my clicker is out of batteries. Let me get a different one for you here real quick, but I'll start you off on the radar here. This is the setup as we head into the rest of this afternoon. We got a low pressure system center just south of the cities and a warm front extending its way back into parts of Wisconsin. So we have a little bit more instability even after that morning activity moved on through. To our south, we find not only severe thunderstorm warnings, but also tornado warnings as well. So we still do have that chance for an isolated severe thunderstorm as we head throughout the rest of the afternoon. So I think this one also has dead batteries, but that, no fear. We just walk over to the computer and we will talk about some things. We have showers and thunderstorms overhead. This is going to continue as we head throughout the rest of the afternoon. We're looking at that target area to be mainly along the Wisconsin-Illinois border. So I want to take you into this cell, particularly out towards Prairie du Chien, as well as Wazeeka there along the Crawford County-Grant County border. This may be a little bit more supercellular, so we could be seeing maybe some brief weak rotation as well as a funnel or two. National Weather Service in La Crosse is noting that that environment is a little bit better closer to Iowa. The mess more into central parts of Wisconsin, stretching from Darlington all the way back into the Milwaukee area. This is not necessarily rotating, but it is certainly producing some heavy rain. And I don't have to remind folks that we have been very wet over the last couple of days. So hopefully we don't see any minor flooding. That would be not something ideal, but that is also a threat as we head into the rest of this afternoon and then into the early evening hours. So I already touched on it, but this is where the activity really hasn't been throughout the day. So we're seeing a line of showers and thunderstorms developing south into northern Illinois, producing not only tornado warnings, but also a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings as well. As I mentioned, that warm front has lifted northwards. Right here is essentially where it's at. More of that energy has moved back into parts of central and southern Wisconsin, maybe just enough to get a severe thunderstorm or two. Not looking at widespread severe weather, but certainly we have the environment. We have the moisture, we have the warmth, and we have this low pressure system moving through Wisconsin. So we have almost a little triple point, and we get that little extra ump in the atmosphere. But as I mentioned, closer to the Wisconsin-Illinois border, that's going to be the more active area. It hasn't been worked over as compared to other parts of our coverage area earlier today. So we'll still keep an eye out through at least 9 o'clock tonight for an isolated severe thunderstorm. The cold front passes, and that's when our high pressure system moves in almost a day early, and it is going to bring us quiet conditions as we head into the rest of this week and really through the middle of the upcoming work week. 70s for high temperatures. Look at those overnight lows, upper 40s, maybe to end the weekend and go into the next work week. Certainly we can give the AC a break and we can let in some fresh air. And it also looks like it's not going to bring down as much smoke. So that is some good news as well. Now, I would also be remiss if I did not touch on the fact that it has been 20 years to the day since Stoughton, Oregon, as well as other communities in that path were impacted by an F3 tornado, touching down here at about 6:15 back in 2005, lifting off the ground at 7:08 on the ground for nearly an hour, traveling 20 miles with a max width of about a half a mile. Unfortunately, there was one fatality, 23 injuries, and it was rated an F3. Our Armand Rahman had talked to a few folks who were impacted by the storm, and he'll bring us more on the 20th anniversary of this very memorable and devastating tornado.
Thank you, Blaze. On Wall Street, the Dow dipped 34 points. The Nasdaq is up just 7, and the S&P 500 is barely down less than a point.
Texas Democrats are back home today after a 15-day absence that stalled Republican efforts to redraw congressional maps. The legislature can now hold a quorum to advance the new maps that would create 5 more Republican-leaning seats for next year's midterm elections. Meanwhile, in California, Democrats are moving forward with a counter-proposal to Texas that would grant them another 5 seats in the legislature.
3 states are sending National Guard troops to join those deployed in Washington, D.C. Governors from West Virginia, Ohio, and South Carolina are deploying troops to support President Donald Trump's initiative to fight crime in the Capitol. Over the weekend, protesters marched to the White House to oppose National Guard presence. The White House says the soldiers are not carrying guns or making arrests, but that could change. Coming up on Live at 4, national lawmakers recently passed legislation that reclassifies fentanyl.
What advocates have to say about how this could impact people struggling with addiction.
Advocates who fight addiction are weighing in on the recently signed HALT Act. President Trump signed the measure into law, which now permanently classifies fentanyl-related substances as Schedule I drugs. Angela Kennecke is the founder of Emily's Hope, and her foundation promotes addiction education and resources for treatment, prevention, and recovery. It's named after her daughter, Emily, who died of accidental fentanyl poisoning 7 years ago at the age of 21. Kennecke is talking with me about how the HALT Act may help other families avoid tragedy. How big of a breakthrough is this in the fight against fentanyl?
Well, I think it's an important measure. I really do, because what it does is it makes the law against these fentanyl dealers permanent. So it classifies fentanyl and many of its analogs as a Schedule I drug. And that has been the case, actually, for years. It was just a temporary order that had to keep getting reinstated. So now this law, what it does is it makes it permanent. Permanently, the fentanyl is being classified as a Schedule I drug.
Because was it hard for law enforcement to stay ahead of the people putting this stuff out on the streets?
I mean, conceivably it could be, because they could just change the formula a little bit and then, could call it something else and maybe skirt the law. I mean, fortunately, there were temporary actions in place in the last several years, but it needed to be made permanent, and so we're grateful for that.
Yeah, and going forward, how do you think this will impact law enforcement officers or counselors, and how does it even fortify what you do with Emily's Hope?
Well, I think it's just one thing, right? There's the law enforcement aspect of the overdose and fentanyl poisoning crisis that we've seen in this country, but it's just one aspect of it. We also need to make sure that we're treating people with substance use disorder and that we're preventing it from happening in the first place. I think prevention is so important. So we have to see enough federal dollars going to support all of those programs. And I was also really glad to hear from various news reports that the CDC is going to release $140 million that was otherwise going to be cut, but it's going to be released for overdose prevention. So I think that's another step in the right direction. I think it's like a three-legged stool, right? We have to have the law enforcement aspect of it, but we also have to have the treatment and prevention. So as long as we're doing all of those things, we who work in this area are really glad to see that happening, because we do see overdose death rates going down. And as particularly in Wisconsin is one of a dozen states where overdose deaths are down by 35%, almost 35%. Those are some of the states with the higher numbers of decreases, which is what we want to see. However, 78,000 people still died in the last 1 year reporting, which is through February of 2025. And that's still a lot more than the year that my daughter died. So we still have work to do, but it is all a step in the right direction.
And finally, you host a weekly podcast called Grieving Out Loud. I listen to it often. And in it, you talk with people who may have lost their loved ones to addiction. And I have to wonder, I don't know if the mass public thinks about the grief attached to addiction, because and in this line of work, and as you've seen in your line of work, people see the overdose numbers and can dismiss the deaths as just addicts who deserved it. But part of your work is to erase that stigma and show that these people aren't just addicts who deserved it. They are people who were loved. Are those conversations still important to you? And is that still an uphill battle to show people that?
I think the stigma still definitely exists. On the podcast, Grieving Out Loud, we talk to so many parents and others involved in this advocacy work. But what we really are trying to do is let people know that these are real sons, daughters, aunts, uncles, cousins, siblings, and when there is one death, there is so much collateral damage. Everyone in the family and their friends, everyone suffers. And we've lost so much potential to the world by the number of young people who have died from this, that it's sickening and saddening to me. And that is one of the things that we're trying to bring out in the podcast. And so we would encourage anyone who has lost, you don't have to have lost someone in this way. We talk about grief. We talk about substance use disorder. We talk about the crisis in the country, and we have real stories on. So I really think there's something for everybody in the podcast.
Oh, very grateful that you're doing what you're doing. Keep up the good work, Angela.
Thanks, Brady.
And you can learn more about the mission by visiting emilyshope.charity. The Department of Health in Wisconsin has an interactive map where you can see all of the locations for free naloxone or Narcan, which is the opioid overdose reversal drug. You can look up Narcan near you by going to the link on your screen. That map is very handy because you can zoom into your area and see what's available.
She's doing such important work, turning her own tragedy into something good for other people.
Yeah, pretty inspiring. So thank you,
very much
Angela.
so. Still ahead tonight on Live at 4, where Madison stands in its search for a new police chief.
Plus, hear from a first responder on the ground for Wisconsin's tornado outbreak 20 years after it happened.
You're watching News 3 Now, live at 4.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us on Live at 4. Happy Monday, everyone.
Rainy days and Mondays, but once we get through today, the weather for the rest of the week looks great. Let's check in with meteorologist Blaze Keller. Is there any more rain tonight, you think, Blaze?
We are going to continue to see that chance for rain as we head through the rest of the evening. I would say by about 8, 9 o'clock is when most of this will wrap on up. But until then, we're going to be seeing those showers primarily where they're at right now, closer to the state line, the Wisconsin-Illinois state line. I do want to take it into parts of Crawford County, Grant County, as well as western parts of Iowa County. This is just a little bit of a better environment. We're closer to the center of low pressure, that there's just a little bit more spin in the atmosphere. These cells in particular look a little bit better in terms of getting that weak rotation. National Weather Service in La Crosse has noted that this is the area closer to that low pressure that we might get a brief spin up. We might also get a brief or weak tornado. Not to neglect everybody else underneath shower and thunderstorms stretching from about the radar site in Sullivan all the way back into Darlington. More of this training moving slowly from west to east. These showers and thunderstorms producing a little bit of lightning just to the south of Edgerton there between us as well as in Milton. We're still sitting underneath an isolated chance in the green for severe thunderstorms. Wind and hail are going to be our greatest threats, but again, we cannot, because of this center of low pressure and the spin that it brings, rule out a brief, weak tornado. There's a look at Future Track, bringing in those showers and thunderstorms through the rest of this evening. But again, by about 9, maybe as early as 8, we're saying goodbye to the activity as our latest high pressure system moves on in. Now, it was 20 years ago today that actually Wisconsin recorded the most single tornadic touchdowns in the state in a single day, 27 to be exact, and one of those was the Stoughton F3 tornado on the ground for 20 miles, as it was also on the ground for nearly an hour, starting near Oregon and dissipating in western parts of Jefferson County near Busseyville with a max width of about a half mile. Armand here in just a few minutes is going to talk a little bit more in depth about this devastating and historic tornado. We're going to talk more about the dry conditions setting on in the full forecast in just a few minutes.
All right, Blaze, that's a day none of us will ever forget. Thank you so much. The American Red Cross of Wisconsin is asking for your help responding to local and nationwide emergencies. This morning, the group issued an urgent call for volunteers, saying that it needs more trained responders who can deploy at a moment's notice. The Red Cross says volunteers will receive free, flexible training and can choose roles that work within their schedules.
The group shared a list of its high priority needs, and that includes volunteers to help respond to local events like home fires and floods, volunteers to help operate the emergency shelters, health and mental health volunteers for people with emotional or medical needs, volunteers to help deliver supplies to affected people, and volunteers to help with operations and local engagement. To sign up, just go to redcross.org.
As Blaze was just saying, on this day in 2005, Wisconsin experienced the most tornadoes in one day, 27, including what was then an F3 tornado over the Stoughton area.
As Armand Rahman found out, the monstrous storm continues to leave an unforgettable impact 20 years later.
It may be hard to tell, but this big oak tree behind me was completely stripped down when the tornadoes hit the Stoughton area 20 years ago. Now it's regrown itself and become a symbol of the town's own regrowth and resiliency.
You could see in the distance stuff flying, just flying. Like, this is not normal stuff.
Kristen McKay was just beginning her life in Stoughton. A day after moving in, sirens sound, and her dad watch from their lawn as a tornado moves over the town of Pleasant Springs in the distance. The F3 tornado left a trail of 100 destroyed homes in its wake and knocked out power for several days in Pleasant Springs and Stoughton.
It changed a lot of people's lives in an instant.
Martin Lamers was the fire chief in Stoughton at the time, and he said without electricity, it was hard to get a scope of the damage until the next day.
They made arrangements for the DNR to fly their plane over the area as soon as the sun came up, and they actually plotted out the full course of the tornado. So then we realized this thing is really enormous.
Enormous means 20 miles that the tornado was on the ground, moving parallel to Highway 51. And where I'm standing right now is the middle of one of those regrown neighborhoods. Tonight at 6, hear from a homeowner about how he had to come back from taking his daughter to college to rebuild his house. For now, reporting in Stoughton, Armand Rahman, News 3 Now.
Thank you, Armand. You can stay on top of all things weather with the First Warn Weather app. Download it for free in your phone's app store. Just search WISC Weather.
Well, Madison got its first look at the 3 candidates who are the finalists to become the city's next police chief.
Here to break down what we know is political reporter Will Keneally. Will?
Well, these 3 candidates are working to replace Sean Barnes, who took over the Seattle Police Force earlier this year. Now, they were interviewed in a closed session of the city's Police and Fire Commission, with the video released late last week. Now, this is the first chance members of the public will get to hear from them ahead of a public meeting of the Police and Fire Commission later this month.
So I think with my leadership, my willing not only to lead, but also be led.
And I believe I'm in the best position to serve in this capacity and move public safety and our police department forward. I believe I'm ready now, not a year from now, but right now.
And I believe it's what sets me apart of having a forward-thinking, education-based mindset for the department.
Now, the public will get a chance to weigh in on these choices at a special meeting of the Police and Fire Commission coming up next Monday. Now, if you want to, you can register to speak at that meeting on the Police and Fire Commission website. You can also submit written comments to the PFC at cityofmadison.com. Now, the commission expects to make a decision by the end of August.
Thank you, Will. On News 3 Now, Stuff the Bus campaign may be over, but the work is just getting started.
Josh Breiter shows us how you can still help get Dane County kids what they need before school starts. That's coming up a little later in the 608.
And we had some loud storms earlier this morning, but are there any more on the way this week? Blaze Keller shows us in his First Warn forecast. A sequel starring Bob Odenkirk topped the box office this weekend.
In Nobody 2, Odenkirk returns as a suburban husband turned assassin.
Bum, bum, bum.
Is it worth seeing? Local film critic Will Loper has his review.
May Brady and Susan. The newest film in theaters, Nobody 2, fought its way to 3rd place with a somewhat disappointing $9 million at the box office this past weekend. But should you head to theaters to see it?
I've come to terms with the fact that you don't have an average job.
You guys having fun at the convention?
But we haven't seen you in months.
What happened to your eye?
Somebody fouled me at the game.
What game?
The one you missed.
Bob Odenkirk, best known as Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, returns as Hutch, the family man who is revealed to have a dark, action-filled past from the first Nobody film released in 2021.
Everybody get to the basement.
What is happening?
Don't call 911.
This time around, Hutch takes a vacation with his family to the fictional town of Plummerville, Wisconsin.
I think I stumbled into something.
You're vacationing in an old bootlegging route.
Which just so happens to be the center of a gigantic criminal operation.
Guys, I'm not gonna fight you. I'm here on vacation.
And it's not long before Hutch is back to punching, shooting, and exploding his way out of trouble.
Find this nobody. Scorched earth.
I just want a break.
Although not as good as the first Nobody film, there's still plenty of fun to be had with the sequel that's basically John Wick as a family man.
I'm here with my family. making memories.
Odenkirk shines as Hutch, the fights are inventive, and Nobody 2 is a must-see in theaters for any fans of action. For Live at 4, I'm Will Loper.
That looks pretty good.
Yeah, a nice little movie to relax to.
Yeah, right. Coming up on Live at 4, Blaze takes another look at our first warn forecast.
And later, how many games in a row the Milwaukee Brewers won, setting a record over the weekend. In the 608, our back-to-school drive is officially over. But here's the thing, we still need your help.
Josh Spreiter is in Madison with how volunteers are needed now to go through all the donations.
We are at the Boys and Girls Club's Fleming location here in Madison, and we've got some news for you today. Of course, we've been talking about our back-to-school drive. How many backpacks did we get?
Oh my gosh, we're so grateful for everyone stepping up in the community. We exceeded our goal. We had a record number. 560 backpacks. So thank you to everyone who came out and donated over the past couple of weeks. We're so excited to distribute all these backpacks.
That's 560 kids that are going to be set up to succeed this school year.
Absolutely, and we're so grateful that not only includes backpacks, that includes rulers, markers, colored pencils, everything that kids need to have a great school year.
We know what stressful time this is for a lot of families, and this is why we do this, is be able to help these families kind of alleviate that stress and anxiety for back to school.
Absolutely. Going back to school is really expensive, and so if there's any way that the Boys and Girls Clubs and all of our partners can help alleviate that stress for families, we want to step up and do that.
Of course, 560, that's a big number, so now you have a lot of supplies that you need to go through this week.
Yes. So today, tomorrow, and Wednesday, we need volunteers to help us sort through all the supplies, and what we'll do then is we'll divvy up the supplies between this club, our Allied Club in Fitchburg, and our McKenzie Family Club in Sun Prairie.
And I understand there are shifts available for people to still come in and volunteer this week.
Yes, people can come to our website, boysandgirlsclubs.danecounty.com /back-to-school, and we have opportunities for people to sign up to volunteer.
Oh, that's amazing. All right, so let's talk about distribution day, because that's coming up fast here too.
It is. So on Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. at our 3 club locations here within Dane County, we'll be distributing the supplies to families.
Oh my gosh, and if people are in need of signing up, they can still do so?
Yes, and so we encourage registration beforehand. That's again at our website, and people can register, and then we can check them in really easily, and people can come in. We'll have other activities too. We'll have food here as well, and really make it a fun experience.
We put the call out to the community for 500 backpacks. We exceeded that goal. So what's your message for all those folks that helped us get there?
Yes, just a big thank you. Thank you to all organizations that hosted a donation drive for us over the past few weeks. You all, Midwest Financial Group, Walgreens, Kindness Bank. We're so grateful for all the partnership. We can't do this alone.
Took a whole community to make it happen.
It sure did, and we're grateful.
All right, Lindsay, thank you so much for the update. Again, 560 students set up to succeed here in the school year. We could not be more proud with that number. In Madison, I'm Josh Spreiter, News 3 Now.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, everybody.
Nice.
Thank you, Josh and Lindsay. Let's get an update now on the weather with Blaze.
And we're continuing to track showers and thunderstorms moving through southern Wisconsin at this hour. The good news is we do look to become drier as we go into later parts of Tuesday, a whole day sooner than what we were kind of thinking later last week. High pressure is going to be moving on in following this low pressure system and its warm front, which is draped across parts of Wisconsin right now. Underneath that warm front, or to the south, a little bit more instability is still in the atmosphere. And for folks closer to that center of low pressure, particularly in parts of Crawford County, Grant County, Iowa, Lafayette, as well as parts of Richland and Vernon County, you're closer to that center of rotation, so there's just a little bit of a twist in the atmosphere, as say compared to folks further to the east. So we're going to be watching this area for maybe a brief funnel or a brief or weak tornado. This rain is probably just going to continue to train its way eastward or move slowly eastward, essentially raining itself out. But we're seeing, at least on Radar 3000, more of a classic supercellular signature. Not saying that there's a tornado warning, it would be popping up right here, but these cells look a little bit better in terms of that rotation than, say, the mess, quite frankly, with these cells in parts of Dane County, Greene, and Lafayette County eastward. So we're going to watch this area, but for now, we still continue to sit underneath that isolated chance for severe weather, not anticipating widespread severe weather. The morning shower and thunderstorm activity really did work over the atmosphere, which is some good news, because this is about the time that we would typically expect severe weather to explode or fire. And given that we have this energy still, we can kind of thank the morning activity for keeping the clouds around. It's dampened our chance for widespread severe weather, but we're still not out of the woods yet. So stay with News 3 Now. We will keep you updated. But really, strong winds and hail are going to be our greatest threat. But as I mentioned, with that center of low pressure moving overhead, we just have that little bit of rotation, so we can't rule out an isolated weak or brief tornado. The activity will wrap up as we head into the 7, 8, 9 o'clock time frame, with most of us further to the west drying out sooner rather than later. Folks closer to Lake Michigan, you're going to be dealing with that threat for showers and thunderstorms through at least 9 o'clock tonight. And then our high pressure system moves on in out of Canada, not necessarily bringing a lot of smoke, but what it is going to bring is more comfortable temperatures and more comfortable conditions. A bullseye of about 70 to 80% chance of being cooler than average as we head into the end of our extended forecast, further into those final days of August. The darker the blue is just the confidence level, not necessarily how cold we are going to get. So we don't need to break out the winter jackets yet. But maybe a light sweatshirt, maybe it's sweater weather out there with temperatures in the upper 60s to low 70s Sunday and Monday of this weekend and the following work week. Overnight lows dipping into the upper 40s to end the weekend. Some very much needed dry conditions setting up from tomorrow, essentially through the end of next week. So get out and enjoy these nice conditions. It has been a rainy couple of days or weeks here across southern Wisconsin. We can use this time to dry out, give the AC a break, and enjoy these comfortable, almost fall-like conditions that arrive starting tomorrow.
Well, how about those Brewers? They set a record winning streak over the weekend, winning 14 games in a row.
Yeah, something to be proud of. But before that, the crew was able to secure free food for their fans after winning 12 games in a row. Milwaukee burger chain George Webb said it would offer free burgers on August 20th. I'll take cheese, barbecue sauce, and pickles on mine. As of today, though, all 100,000 of those vouchers have been claimed.
Yeah, that probably happened in about
I was going to say
2 minutes.
Like hungry fans.
Blaze offered to go and do some live shots for us.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Pickles?
What? What do you have against pickles?
We don't have time. We only have 30 seconds. And on that note, a quick look at Radar 3000, because we are still tracking the chance for an isolated severe thunderstorm here for, I would say, the next 3 to 4 hours. Quiet on Radar 3000 in terms of severe alerts. However, as I mentioned, we're still going to be tracking the chance. So stay with News 3 Now through the rest of this evening for the latest updates. But now know that we are currently not under any severe thunderstorm or tornado warnings.
All right, good to know. Thank you, Blaze. We'll be right back.
Tomorrow on Live at 4, Angie Horkin stops by with some recipes for leftover beef brisket. And coming up on News 3 Now at 5, the troubled bar, formerly known as Monkey Shines, gets a rebrand. Jalen Banks shows us what led to the change and why. Well, thanks for joining us on Live at 4 today, and we hope to see you back here tomorrow. Remember, you can always find us streaming 24/7 on Channel 3000+. News 3 Now at 5 starts right now.